Come and dream with me.
Hello and welcome to What Do You Want to Watch, the Explosion Network's premier media podcast. Every fortnight we get together to talk about movies, TV and their online content and help you answer the question, bad boys, what you going to do? What you going to do when Cops is cancelled for glorifying police aggression? I'm your host, Ashley Hobley. Joining me this episode, Dylan Blight.
Hello. Great intro.
Solid intro. We've got a good episode. We're going to be talking about what's our watch history. We'll be going over a little bit of news, and then we'll be talking about the movie we ended up watching, Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. But first, we're joined by Ciaran Marchants, popping in.
Hi, everyone.
Popping in to talk about the new release on Disney Plus, Artemis Fowl. Based on the 2001 novel of the same name by Ian Colfer, I believe that's how you pronounce it.
Good job. Yeah, that is definitely how you pronounce it.
Weird vowels.
It's got an E. It's got an E and an O in it, but it's fine.
Directed by Kenneth Branagh, starring Ferda Shaw, Lara McConnell, Josh Gad, Tamara Smart, Nonso and Nosy, Colin Farrell, and Judi Dench. Initially meant to come out, it was early June, late March. Late May in cinemas, but of course coronavirus nixed that plan, so they released it on Disney Plus. As someone who's never read the books, I watched the film. It was okay. It was kind of middling. Not a lot happened. And then there was Josh Gad's character, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But I believe you're a fan of the books, Ciaran, so how did you feel about this?
I really enjoyed watching the books.
Reading the books, even?
Reading the books. I enjoyed reading the books when I was a kid. And I had, reserved hopes for this movie of being like, you know what, it's Disney. They can't screw this up too badly, right? It's not like, to go into the short past, I also love the Percy Jackson series, and they really fucked up the first movie. And I also love the Aragon series, and they really screwed up the first movie of that. So I was like, you know what, eventually...
Somebody's got to get something right.
Yeah, somebody's got to get something on. And this movie's not good. This movie is not good. For me, I think it's really the writing that it hurts this the most, which is incredible when it's coming from a book. It's coming from a novelization, and I just feel like the screenplay is really bad. I don't know if it's the actor or the writing, but Artemis comes off like a little twerp. He is it's in the books. He is this confident and smart kid. He is full on. From the very start of the book, he is 100% a potential thief and evil mastermind. He just is. And he has this confidence to him whenever he's talking to somebody. And throughout this, throughout this movie, he just, he just comes off like a little douche. He's just so, okay, you're kind of smart, but you don't have the essence of, I never believed that any of this was actually his plan. I never believed that he was the one that came up with a set of situations to happen to get what he needed to do. And then the resolution was just extremely oh crap, we've already gone for an hour and 30 minutes. How do we resolve this section? Because
the solution is you don't.
Just the resolution just kind of happens. They just kind of oh crap, we better resolve it now. Josh Gad was horrible.
He was fine. He was Josh Gad.
No, but
there were some interesting choices.
There were some interesting choices. The thing is, at the start of when he's first introduced, he's very much got this gravelly voice going on.
Yeah.
But not a natural gravelly voice. I call it in my Twitter, I think I called it a Batman voice, because it's very much a
trailer voice almost.
Yes, yeah. So it's very much put on. But there are sections throughout this movie where it's he forgot to do the voice.
Yeah.
And the voice just kind of disappears and then comes back, and you're like, what the hell? And then...
No, he's just trying to be intimidating towards the people investigating.
I don't know. Also, the level of his respect that he has for Artemis Fowl at the start of the movie, by the end of the movie, you're
it doesn't really make sense.
Where did you... Yeah, it's where do you earn this respect from?
He got me to do one thing that he wanted me to do. Criminal mastermind.
Yeah, it's so weird and just so odd. I really didn't love the actress that played I can't remember her name. Short. I really don't like. I don't know. She just didn't feel very. I don't know what the word is. Like, she's a very strong character and determined character in the books, and that just didn't come through.
Not really. No.
Like, she didn't have that strength within her. There's an interesting, when she does get caught in the books, there's a very interesting back and forth between Artemis and her, and kind of them both kind of searching each other out and trying to work each other out a little bit. And that tries to happen in this, but it's not done very well.
No, it feels more
so
one-sided.
It feels very one-sided.
Her submitting to him because...
Yes. Also, I was very surprised by the amount of Judi Dench in this.
Need a big star.
But there's I was like, oh, cool, Judi Dench. She'll be in a couple parts. She probably has the most screen time, I almost want to say, in this movie. Like,
pretty
it
close.
Felt like she's
for a movie that's
in
called
it to a
Artemis
lot.
Fowl. He's not in it as much as you would think.
That much. No, exactly. It's very... It's very, yeah, it's so weird how little Artemis is. How there is no time for these characters to breathe. Like, there's no time for the Artemis and I can never remember the character's name, but his butler. And
Don't call him the butler.
The butler's
Dom.
don't call him the butler, but I'm going to. Dom, that's it. There seems to be no time for you to really grow the connection that Artemis and Dom have, and that's not something that's grown in the books. That's just kind of immediately is there throughout the whole series, and there's no time to establish that, and then there's also no time to establish Artemis' connection with Dom's niece. Like, there's just no... Or daughter.
It's niece.
Daughter? Niece?
No,
niece,
yeah.
yeah.
She shows up and just pops up every now and then.
Shows up and is kind of just there, and then you have what you would believe to be the middling section of this movie being this house kind of hold-up scene and the two sides trying to work each other out, and that just takes up the majority of the movie.
Yes. Like barely anything happened in this film. It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. Comparing it to the books, this is so ridiculous and so odd that just nothing of importance happens throughout the movie. I feel like nothing is really explained. You don't really understand this stone that they're trying to get. Like, people are trying to work for. You're like, what does this actually do? You don't get the backstory about Artemis's father and his connection to Short's dad. It's just very weird. Like, just overall, it's so just nothing in this movie. And I bet it cost a ridiculous amount of money to make.
See, budgeted at $125 million.
Yeah, it was. That's not good. Not good.
Yeah,
it's just there's so much, and like even like I understand that they're trying to set up for the future. Like, they're trying to set up for like sequel movies from this. Like
clearly. That ending is like, clearly a sequel setup ending.
Yes. Like, just everything is... Also, what kind of... Okay, cool. Your Secret Service type group has a kind of freaking random base. It's in the middle of water, like a bunch of oil rigs. But why is there, like, a window or a glass pane above where you're interrogating somebody? like, it just seems like a really...
Poor choice, yeah.
Bad flaw. Yeah, and I find it weird having Colin Farrell in this movie. Because he almost seems too young. Even though Colin Farrell isn't young.
No.
Like, he's in his 50s. Believe either early 50s or late 40s. He's somewhere in that, but on appearance Colin Farrell hasn't aged.
He's 44, so
he's 44. Okay,
but yeah, he's got a good skincare routine.
It just seems weird that he's the dad, and
well, he's meant to be 12 years old, so
yeah, but even I guess that's when he's 32. it's just very like they try and build this bond really quickly between the two of them, and it's not done very well. Or that's the thing. Overall, the inter-character interactions are just not written very well at all whatsoever. They're just very like the only ones that I kind of like were between Judi Dench's character and Short. I was like, there is something kind of small there, and I feel like Judi Dench, you're carrying this a heap in this relationship, it's kind of back and forth, but. It's just there's a lot going on in this movie for nothing to happen. Like they try and have this subplot of this evil person who has a minion inside of like the fairies police force, but that doesn't really
Go anywhere?
It's just it's very
strange. It was a very blink or you miss it subplot. It feels like they tried to Disneyfy it as much as they possibly could. Like made it like from what I understand, Artemis is like a bad guy, not like a good guy.
No, he's not. He's pretty okay with.
And yes, they try to make him a Disney family film character,
and it was just a Disney family film character, and then you have the typical. All right, we've got a super smart character that is younger. How do we show that they are super smart? All right, we're going to have a scene where they dress down another adult verbally about something, and you're like, okay, cool. It's just, it's just very weird that in the books, there's very much. It starts off very much like just Artemis in the middle of scheming and being a bad person or being a potentially a master thief.
Yeah.
In this, it's like they've tried to squeeze in an origin story, but it's and then they also tried to bring in relevance of the suit, and it was just very like
there was no relevance. You just said I need to wear a suit,
but they had it hung up there nicely as if to say, "Oh, it's special." You know, it's which in the books he always wears a suit. It's just very normal for him. That's how he's described as a suit wearing, and it's like. Oh, this movie is for him to earn that. It's like, what? So it's just, it's this has been extremely Disneyfied, and it now worries me for Disney is working on the Percy Jackson Lightning Thief again, but in the series form.
I think that's a much better fit, and I feel like that would be a better fit for this as well.
I hope so, but it worries me slightly that they just. Don't see to. I just hope the writing is just better overall. Like I just want better writing of important characters because that's what you get in like the difference between filmmaking and books is that books you don't have the flashy CG or the big set pieces or spectacles to watch. You have to rely on well written characters and well written dialogue, and I think. The movie has just thrown away all of the well-written dialogue and interesting characters and just kind of relied on spectacle in this movie.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So it's currently sitting at a 9% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, that's...
Metacritic of 31. Not great.
Not great. I thought it'd be lower, to be perfectly honest.
So it's fair to say we probably will not see Artemis Fowl for a long time.
No, I honestly think... I think they will push through and do a second one.
Really? That's bold.
I think so. I think
well,
because I think they've already committed to it.
I don't know if they have.
I think when they initially announced that they announced multiple films.
Yeah, but plans fall through.
I know that can change on a dime because of everything, but
I mean, it's done so poorly that I find it hard to believe they would pull off a sequel unless the numbers on Disney Plus are like super impressive, and they could be because everybody's like, "Hey, let's watch the terrible thing."
Exactly. Not even let's watch the terrible thing. There are families everywhere that are 3+ months into quarantine and this pandemic, and look, a new Disney movie is out. Let's watch it together.
Yes. They're like, why did we do that? Or they'll be like, that was fine. That mostly I feel like people will be like, that's fine. Anyone who hasn't read the books will be like, that was
everybody read the
okay.
Books will be annoyed and be like me.
Angry, yeah.
I think kids might still love it because it still has that, kid kind of humor about it every now and then.
Yeah.
And
listen, a major selling point as to why I watched this film was they said that Josh Gad eats dirt and then excretes it.
Can I say, overall, the effects in this movie are pretty good. Like, overall, the spaceships, the weather effects are pretty good. The only part that's a bit, like, gross is Josh Gad's, like, facial animations of him, like, pulling his jaw down.
Adjusting himself.
It's just very odd. And, yeah, there's a lot where you feel like this movie, if it was, like, it wanted to be an hour longer, and Disney's like, well, no, it needs to be this long. And so they just went with a hatchet and just cut out a heap of movie.
That is definitely it definitely feels like they've cut something down dramatically to fit 90 minutes while squeezing in extra elements that probably didn't need to be there.
100%. It's just very, even the start is slightly slow in terms of trying to world build and trying to grow the relationship between Artemis and his father and that stuff. It's like, you start with this kind of opening of media outside of his house and whatever, but then instead of just going from there and then bursting straight into what's going on in the movie, you go back a step and you take a long kind of walk to get to where it started. It's just very poorly done.
Yep. All right, well, that's Artemis Fowl. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me, everyone.
All right, so moving on. Dylan, you've had a fair bit of time to watch some stuff while you've been out with dealing with your oral surgery.
I was about to say oral. Yeah, okay. You can just say I got my wisdom teeth.
I'm trying to come up with new ways to say it.
I had all four. Let's clarify. It wasn't a wisdom teeth. 4 wisdom teeth. Basically, the worst surgery. No, I'm okay.
But anyway, you've been watching a fair bit of stuff while you've been recovering.
I don't think I watched that much, did I? I don't know.
I think so. Let's kick things off with Euphoria, the series that came out last year on HBO, starring Zendaya.
Yeah, so that was great. I suppose, yeah, I forgot. I was like, this was my big binge while I was on the couch full of drugs, going, just, I don't want to move, but let me watch something. This was great. I remember hearing when it came out last year, everyone was talking about it, but I never started watching it for whatever reason. Maybe I was too busy at the time to commit to it or something like that. I don't know. So the show's basically about a group of teenagers, and it involves, you could very easily, I feel, describing the show, kind of sum it up in a way that makes it sound like many other teenage shows, because it's about drugs, sex, all these sorts of things. But it's like probably the most dark take on all of this sort of stuff. Like, it's not like, hey, the party life is great. It's not a teen party movie. It tackles heavy of really messed up themes that are the reality of life, including underage prostitution, drug abuse as a teenager, addiction to drugs as a teenager. That's what Zendaya's character, Rue, the series starts with her literally coming back from returning to her hometown after she's been away for a couple of months, and she was in a rehab because she literally overdosed and nearly died. So straight away, this series is like, on some heavy shit, just to get into it. And then you get introduced to a bunch of other characters, including people that go to her high school who are going through their own issues, including one who's in a relationship with a rather abusive boyfriend, and they have a tumultuous relationship throughout the series. And without spoiling things, he gets involved with other rather messed up and interesting storylines that I don't think I've seen any TV show handle before. But no, the other thing that really stands out this show is not only is it acted wonderfully, like everyone in the show is amazing. It doesn't write into any stereotypes of any of the characters. Like even because I feel like often the American shows like this, they fall into they put all the people in the, like the mean girl traits of like the cliques, here's the nerdy group, here's the hot girl group or whatever. But like you do have the hot girl group, but they're not like instantly bitches towards everyone else. Like they don't fall into the tropes for these sorts of characters and whatever else. But also the show's just shot wonderfully. Like it has a like almost neon flair to it at all times. And then it even has some sequences that go super weird and trippy and do heaps of, I'm sure they cost heaps of money, but that's why the show's on HBO and they were able to fulfill making the director's dreams come true for this show. But yeah, the second season was supposed to start, I think this year, but I think it's been pushed back to next year because of COVID now, which is unfortunate. But it is really, really good. It's hard to watch at times. I feel like it would be even harder to watch if you were like, if you're like a parent of a young teenage girl, because the show mostly focuses on the female characters and a lot of really messed up things that happen to them. So it's quite dark in that regard. Also, Zendaya is fantastic in it, and I've never seen her in a role like this. Obviously, this MJ Spider-Man's fun or whatever, and I've seen her in the musical one with Hugh Jackman, whatever that, I can't remember.
Greatest Showman.
Greatest Showman, she's fine in that and all that sort of thing.
Smallfoot.
I would say what?
Smallfoot.
What's that?
It's an animated film. There was like a viral thing.
Okay, no. So she's fine, she's good and everything. Like I enjoy her playing MJ, but I'd say out of everything I've watched, this is her standout role that I've ever seen her in. Like this is her really owning and doing something special with a character. So yeah, I'm really excited about season 2. And I really wished I'd watched this last year because it definitely would have been would have pushed something out of my top 10 to make way easily.
Cool. So then you watched the Beastie Boys story, the new documentary by Spike Jonze on Apple TV. What did you think of that one?
Well, it's kind of weird because it is a documentary, but it's like a performance. Like they recorded I can't remember their names, but I have to open the thing quickly here. I listen to Beastie Boys, but I'm not big enough of a fan to remember the names as well. So you got Mike D, and then you Adam Horovitz, and Adam Yauch is the one who passed away a couple of years ago, the third member, so he's not there, obviously. But the two, they come out on a stage, and it's like they're giving a TED Talk, but it's also like a bit of a performance piece, and they've got the whole audience, but then it intercuts, and they've obviously got like a PowerPoint, the presentation or whatever you want to happening behind them, where they play the clips and they show these pictures and they'll play music and whatever else to the audience. But obviously when they cut to important stuff, it goes full screen in the documentary for those watching at home. But then you still get the audience reaction to things. So it's kind of I've definitely never watched a documentary before where you're watching it, but you also have a audience laugh track or an audience reaction track at the same time, and even cuts to the audience's reaction at times to these sorts of things. So that made it super interesting. Overall, I thought it was good. I don't think it's good enough that if you have no interest in the Beastie Boys at all, that it would put you over and you could fall in love with the subject matter, because the documentary is made well enough. They're literally telling their story to people who obviously paid to come listen to their story because they're already fans of the Beastie Boys, and a lot of the jokes and references they make are made in ways that you kind of have to already know of their songs or know of things that happen throughout their history, at least somewhat or tangentially, to understand what's going on. But overall, I really enjoyed it. As I said, a medium fan of listening to the majority of their music and knowing the baseline of their music history, like where they went from A to B to C to D kind of thing, but not knowing a lot of the in-between stories. So, and a lot of those in-between stories that they tell are quite interesting, and they do them in a funny manner. Like they make jokes, they back and forths, one will disappear off stage and then do, there's some dad jokes involved, I swear, but that just shows their age at this stage, I feel. But overall, it was really good. And Spike directing it, who directed a bunch of the Beastie Boys videos back in the day, and also, of course, was heavily involved with the Jackass stuff and whatever else. But he directed Her. I guess that's his most known thing these days. I guess directing Her probably. He must be at the backstage, like helping do things, and they even do jokes with him where Spike will accidentally press the wrong PowerPoint button and bring up the wrong picture, and they'll be like, "Spike, what are you doing?" And then you'll hear his voice be like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry about that, guys." And he like plays it later, and they're like, "What the hell, Spike?" Like it's funny back and forth. You can tell they have good humor and stuff like that. So yeah, good chemistry. So yeah, it was enjoyable. Yeah.
So Dylan, I saw that you watched Peanut Butter Falcon, which is a bit of a sleeper critical hit last year, starring Shia LaBeouf and what was it?
Zach Goddard's again.
Zach Goddard's, who you would probably best know from this past year's Academy Awards.
Yes, he was there for this film as well. So.
He was here for this film? No, that's good.
I mean, he wasn't nominated, but I don't believe
he was from this film.
He was representing this film at the Oscars, yeah. So the film is about... It has Shia LaBeouf in it. It has a couple of big people, Dakota Johnson, Bruce Dern. But Zach is the star, and the film is about his character. And he plays... I don't know if it says his age on here. I don't know. I think he's like early 20s or something roughly like that. And he's got Down syndrome, and he is, for whatever... I can't remember the exact circumstances, but he's in this basically home, but it kind of seems like it's an old people home, and he's been put there by the law. I don't know, like the whatever services are called. The state. Yeah, I guess that's the proper term. Yeah, he's been put there by the state because he has no family to look after him, and because of such reasons and whatever else. Maybe he's younger than 20. I guess. Like I don't know the exact.
It says 22 on.
Okay, yeah, because I couldn't remember the exact like legal reasons that they give you in the start of the movie as to why he's not allowed to leave this place. But he's been put in their care, and Dakota Johnson plays this woman who's like the main person that runs the home, and Bruce Dern is also someone who's there, and he's friends with Zach's character. And Bruce Dern early in the movie helps Zach escape from the old people's home, or whatever it is, the services home, whatever you want to call it. And Zach wants to escape because he has this videotape that he's obsessed with about this wrestling school that's Saltwater Redneck, who's played by Thomas Hayden Church in the film. Saltwater Redneck, he has this VHS where he watches his wrestling and he wants to become a wrestler, and he talks about how he has a wrestling school, like X amount of miles, the opposite direction of wherever he's on. So he sets out on this road trip, and along the way, early in the movie, he runs into Shia LaBeouf's character, who he's also sort of on the... Well, no, not sort of. He is on the run at this stage because he is basically seems to be a lonesome sort of wandering type who pisses off the wrong people in this local fishing village, and he kind of burns down all their shit in an act of rage, and it's a very silly decision he makes. However, it's one that you see him make, and then he kind of takes off, and these people are trying to find him. And throughout the movie, you get these flashback sequences. I don't want to spoil it because it's like part of the story in the movie, but you do see these flashback sequences to John Berthenol plays Shia LaBeouf's character's brother, and there is a story to that as to what's going on with Shia LaBeouf's character and his emotional state throughout this movie. Anyway, Shia LaBeouf and Zach's character run into one another, and then they kind of form this relationship where he's like, I'm going this way, and he asks for his help, and he agrees to help get him to this wrestling school. And that's the movie. It's a road trip journey that for the most part is just Shia LaBeouf and Zach going on this journey to find this wrestling school. And it starts out obviously where Shia isn't like picking on him, but he's also just like, fucking kid, what are you doing? But along the way, he teaches him to stick up for himself, helps him make wrestling moves. There's a really great scene one night where Shia's character builds him like this costume out of things, and they put it on, and they're practicing like wrestling moves and all this sort of thing. It's so funny though, because I came into this movie, I didn't really know much about it. I knew obviously who was in it, and I knew it was like a road trip movie of some sort. And then when I sat down and found out it was like so heavily about wrestling. I'm like, oh, what the memes are funny. And yeah, I mean, Dakota Johnson eventually gets involved as well because she tries to track down Zach and get him to return to the home and whatever else. But it's just it's a feel good road trip movie. Everyone, it's acted very well, shot very good. Overall, I enjoyed it. It's quite good. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't have by the time you reach the end, you're like, maybe there could have been a bit more depth to the exploration of a couple of these characters, but overall, it just leaves you with a happy feeling by the time you get to the credits rolling. So I'd rate it. I thought it was very good.
Great. Then I saw you also watched the 2019 version of Charlie's Angels, directed by Elizabeth Banks, starring Naomi Scott, Kristen Stewart, and Naomi Belinsky. What did you think?
Yeah, I actually thought it was. I thought it was quite good. Kristen Stewart's great in it. I thought she was the standout personally. I thought she did a really, really good job in it. I liked all of the girls though, and overall it's about as good as I expected a fucking Charlie's Angels movie to be, which it sounds like I'm either giving it a free pass or assuming it was going to be bad, but it's like none of the ones before this were great, you know? Like the two that I watched when I was in high school, that came out when I was a kid or whatever, you know, the Cameron Diaz ones and Drew Barrymore one, Lucy Liu ones.
Yeah.
The first one's fine. The second one's shit. This one, I would actually say this is my favorite. I think this is better than both of those.
I think
easily.
it's a nostalgia thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, maybe.
They hit
maybe
just that time and
them.
period of young men growing up, you know?
I guess if that's I mean that movie does go for that angle. This movie is directed by as you said Elizabeth Banks, so it doesn't have the male gaze towards the Charlie's Angels characters. Instead, they're
competent.
Their sexiness is because that fits their characters or whatever in the moment, not because a director like Michael Bay is doing like slow motion shots around there because they choose to. No, I think Mick G directed one of those or something, didn't he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah. Which, he's very much like that same sort of director as well, so that does add up. It sets up a sequel, obviously. I would very much like to watch the sequel because overall the plot is whatever. The action scenes are not shot fantastically, but what carries it, I think, is the three girls and the chemistry they have. So I'd quite happily watch another movie with these three girls and the chemistry they have in this movie because it's just fun. I'm not, like I'd probably rate this a 6 if I was reviewing it, right? But I'd be like, it's a 6 that I enjoyed more than a 6. You know what I mean? Like, So that's kind of how I feel about this one. I never shat on it, and I was like,
no, it was better than people were giving it credit for. You know, there were some fun bits and some decent action. And there was some good twists and turns.
Yeah, I feel like what really could have helped it, like I could do with the shitty villain plot, whatever, but I do feel like either Elizabeth Banks needs to get help sounds terrible, but like get better at shooting action scenes because that's where she's kind of faltering between this and even what'd she do prior to this? What was it? That last movie she did before this. She did an action movie, or whatever it was that she directed.
Pitch Perfect 3. No, 2.
No, something else she did, maybe. But the action scenes kind of do let it down. They're a little bit choppy. They're not too exciting for the most part. And I feel like if this movie had even one really great, memorable action scene, it kind of could have pushed it forward quite a bit. But it doesn't have any super memorable action scenes. So it's like either that or get a second assistant director, obviously shooting the action stuff, who's more capable.
Or a cinematographer with more action experience. Yeah,
because it kind of just that would be my biggest complaint. I can do with the villain. Like it's a Charlie's Angels movie. I don't fucking care.
Then you finally got around to watching Jojo Rabbit, the Taika Waititi Academy Award winning film. What'd you think after all these months?
It was fine. I neither like it or dislike it really. It literally is. I think it's I mean, unless I'm forgetting a Taika movie, but like I enjoyed it, but I would still probably put it at the bottom of all his movies overall. Like it to me, it was rather forgettable. I don't feel like it was super. I don't think it was as charming as the trailers made it out to be. I don't think it was as funny as a bunch of his movies, and I don't think it's joking humor, criticism, whatever you want to call it, like a take on Nazis was super deep or even really interesting. There's one moment in the movie where I was like, wow, that's fucked up, and I hope they do something with that. But it kind of just, by the end of the movie, felt like it was somewhat glossed over, even though it wasn't. But I just felt like it wasn't as big a deal by the end of the movie. And that was the one movie.
Was it the fate of Scarlett Johansson's character?
Yes, it's about Scarlett Johansson's character. And I was like, they could have done like this. Yep. This just feels kind of wasted, I feel. And she is great, like because obviously she was nominated and all that stuff. I was like, how good could she be in this fucking movie, like just playing the mother character? Yep. But no, every scene she's in, she just radiates with love for her child and everything.
She had a good year.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
All right, and then you finished off with a Zac Efron double feature. Tell me about 17 again.
I don't need to talk about 17. It was on fucking TV. I've seen it like fucking a million times. I was super drugged up. I was like, this is an easy watch. Yeah, you make this decision. That movie's actually decent. Like, I've seen it several times now, and I'm like, you know what? Not bad. It's not bad.
Are those kind of movies weird now? Like, do they not
Zac
work?
Efron's not like buffed up, or
No. The concept of a older guy becoming a younger person and then hitting on younger women.
I mean, I don't think he hits on any. The only no, because the whole thing of the movie is that he constantly is trying to hit on his own wife.
Yeah.
And then that's where the plot, I guess you could feel kind of weird, because then there's like one scene where she dances with him, even though it's Zac Efron, and it's obviously quite kind of weird because he's supposed to be a 17-year-old kid. So that could be kind of weird, but then it's not actually him. So I guess it's like weird. I think it would be a lot weirder, yes, if the 17-year-old kid character who is actually like 40 was trying to hit on 17-year-old girls. But no, he's literally trying to hit on the older lady, and she's like, hey, I'm a fucking get away from me.
Thinking MILF. Probably another MILF.
They literally make a MILF joke in it. She's like, I know you kids all say MILFs and stuff. So yeah, but it's his own wife. So, who at the start of the movie there like admits they break up, divorce. So
all right. Well, what did you think of Baywatch, your other film, and your Zac Efron double feature? Or were you also drugged up for this?
Man, that's like that train wreck that I couldn't stop watching.
It is.
It is like so bad, yet it's like I don't even know if the movie even makes sense. Really, it's just it felt like there's like they wrote a basic one sentence plot structure where they're like bad woman trying to buy property, antics ensue, and then they kind of wrote a bunch of random jokes / action scenes tidbits that happen throughout the movie amongst that.
And then they said it at the beach. Yeah,
and then they said it at the beach. And I mean, it's the thing is, it's absolutely ridiculous and silly. However, that's what the main TV show was. That's what the original TV show was. They make jokes about older girls, what clothes they got to wear, and they do the slow motion thing and all this other sort of stuff, douchey characters, running on the beach, whatever. I mean, it's pretty much what I expected. It's got The Rock. Great. Zac Efron's great. I think he's underrated as with his comedy timing, I think.
Yeah.
Between everything he's been doing the last couple, like 5 issues or whatever it is, I actually think he's legit underrated for how good he is in comedy movies. And overall, it was fun, but it was just, there's moments where I'm like, what the fuck? There's one moment involving a fucking... no one cares about spoilers for this movie. There's one moment where they like go into this... what do you call it? Where do they store dead people? What's that called? I can't remember the word for it. But where they store like dead bodies, right? When they're about to do autopsies and shit. And then they have this really thing where Zac Efron's character has to like pick up this dead dude's dick and like look under his balls. And The Rock's like, look under his balls. And then The Rock's like taking pictures of him. And I'm like... what am I watching right now?
It's so weird. Such an odd movie. Isn't there something with dolphins at some point? I feel like there was some ridiculous thing with
I
dolphins.
can't remember if there was. Not that I can recall. Maybe there was. I don't know. There's literally a scene where they're like, there's a million ridiculous things that involve The Rock being apparently just invincible and cannot
That's all he
die.
plays anymore.
Yeah, I mean that's literally all the movies he's in, I guess. But yeah, it was all right.
Yeah.
Once again, I was on drugs. I probably enjoyed it more than I would have without. But
Without drugs.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, it's fine.
All right. So I want to mention the Disney Plus series Gallery Star Wars The Mandalorian. So it hasn't completed yet, but I've watched, I think, 4 or 5 episodes. I want to bring up episodes 4 and 5. Episode 5, they talk about all the practical effects within the show. You get to see how they made Baby Yoda, how see him on set. I mean, it's just more footage of Baby Yoda, so that's enough reason to go look out this behind-the-scenes featurette series, so you can just see more Baby Yoda. It's great. But then they also talk in episode 4 about the technology behind the series and the volume. Have you watched this series at all, Dylan?
No, I need to.
No. So they explain how they shot the show to look.
They shoot it on big LCD screens.
They shoot it on on a big LCD screen, but it's a full circle
Yeah.
with a roof that also does, so they can get all the correct lighting, and to actually see how it works is pretty incredible in my opinion. Just to with anyone with a film interest should check it out because
I've seen it covered in a not the exact Mandalorian, but I've seen the whatever that stuff is called, the proper like shooting system, that whatever they call their screens and setup. I've watched a YouTube video on it before, and it's quite insane. But it's also hard to tell in the YouTube video because they talk about how like, or maybe it's the same as in this thing, but they talk about how it looks like super real and you're shooting it and whatever, which obviously you know because you watch The Mandalorian and you can't tell it's shot against TV screens basically. But it's still like, even when you're seeing, when your brain, I feel like my brain just couldn't comprehend when I'm seeing a shot where like the circle thing or whatever, the shooting location's in the middle, but I can see off to the sides where like outside of the shooting location, and my brain I think was struggling to be like, I don't like, it doesn't look real. But like when you cut off that outset stuff, then I guess it does look real. But when I was seeing the full picture, my brain's like, it's a TV. Like how's that work?
The way it works is you won't see it properly from outside of the camera because the camera's got to be at the right depth angle. So if the camera goes up, the screens are based on
they adjust
game engines, so they move to give you the correct depth and that kind of thing. So like certain parts of it will look weird if you're not at the correct angle as the camera.
Shout out to like when we brought them up however many months ago, but I think Corridor Crew also did a video on this as well. I think, pretty sure.
But yeah, crazy. Just seeing the setup of this room, the volume is crazy and just huge, and they're sticking that. I finally understand how they did the freaking the Jawa ship thing. They just got the bottom bit, and then the whole top half of it is computer generated. And just seeing all the little nifty tricks and stuff that they've managed to pull off. It's crazy because you think of The Mandalorian, there's a ton of different sets, and really they shot it all in one room pretty much.
Yep. And you wonder like, oh, how'd they finish up shooting season 2 during COVID times?
Yeah. Just in one room. That's why there was so few leaks, because there was barely any going out to sets or anywhere.
Yeah,
all just one room.
Like they had the outside stuff, I know, because there was like that one time for season 1 where they brought in the 501st to play a bunch of
anything in the town or whatever it was.
Yeah, called. I can't remember the name of the town off my head now, but yeah, anything in there was shot. That's the only time stuff actually leaked as well. I remember seeing pictures of the 501st. Like leaking online and stuff, and people like it's from The Mandalorian. But even when you saw those shots, it's like, what's this tell you about the show? That there's fucking stormtroopers in it? Yeah, okay. Like good. Oh, it's a Star Wars. It's got stormtroopers. Yeah, way.
Shocking. Yeah. So definitely check that out. I still got to catch up on a couple episodes. I think they've got one on the score and that. So.
Side note on this. So this may not be relevant by the time this comes out tomorrow. I don't know. When does these episodes drop? Do they drop today or tomorrow? Fridays. Yes, they dropped Friday. So I saw on Twitter just before, I can't remember who, but one critic said that they had not received, and a bunch of critics in the replies said the same thing, that they had not received early access to the final episode when they had been getting early access to every episode prior. So a lot of people were theorizing that maybe the final episode is going to have a teaser trailer for season 2 at the end, and that's the reason that Disney hasn't released it early, even for critics. just as a side tease, may or may not be relevant by the time this drops tomorrow morning. I don't know.
Even more reason to catch up.
Yeah, there you go.
Then I also want to talk about DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Obviously, season wrapped up. Season 5, brilliant. This show does all kinds of crazy shit. So this season they did an episode set on a college campus, which was pretty much just a frat boy mini movie. They visited the set of Supernatural. They featured a zombie apocalypse. They had an episode where the entire cast was trapped on different TV shows based on Friends and Star Trek and Downton Abbey. And then the finale featured a fight where it was set to Cisco's The Thong Song, in which a version of Cisco was performing it in the background while they're fighting. So that's the kind of craziness you can expect from DC's Legends Tomorrow. And mini spoilers, it seems like one of the characters gets abducted by an alien at the end of the episode. At the end of the finale. So look forward to that in season 6. It's probably my favorite thing being made by DC at the moment. It's just, the tone is fun. All the characters are great. They've got great chemistry. They're nice mix. So DC's Legends of Tomorrow, the first season's not great, but you can catch up on the rest.
I wasn't a big fan of the first season, but every time I've heard about it from like season 3 on, I was like, oh, they're kind of stepping away from the more, trying to do more serious.
It is crazy what they do. It's like, how did they just let them do whatever they want? I mean, it's crazy. Crazy. All right, let's move into the mandatory Netflix segment of the show. Big, timely release this past week. Spike Lee's latest joint, The Five Bloods, dropped on Netflix, in which 5 former Vietnam vets go back to Vietnam to find their fallen comrades' remains and bring back to America, also trying to find some buried gold that they snuck away during the Vietnam War. Dylan, you reviewed this for the site. What did you think?
Yeah, so I gave it an 8. I think it's very good. I have one major gripe with it. Well, I mean, there's a couple of small things, but I'll get to my major thing in a moment, because I've seen a lot of people online say the complete opposite of me. So I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm either on the wrong side or the right side of history for this one. But the movie is, as you said, it's a timely release. It's obviously, I feel much, even like, what the fuck is his name? Black Klansman. I really forgot the name of it. His last film, that was set, in the past, yet Spike managed to make it seem very relevant to what was happening in the moment. And even by the end of that movie, obviously it shows a montage of Trump stuff and whatever else, and it's very much like, hammers home the message a little bit. This movie doesn't end with another Trump montage, but at the same time, you literally have one of the characters in the movie played by Delroy Lindo, who plays Paul. He is one of the men, and he's a Trump supporter, and that makes for a rather interesting dynamic between the 3 other of his friends and who are not Trump supporters. And literally, when they get back, and they're early in the movie, they're kind of going around Vietnam like the night before they head out to go start the expedition. They're like going around this bar, and they're dancing and drinking and whatever, and there's like a part where they're talking and whatever, and then he starts acting like super racist. He's like, why are these, I mean, I'm not going to repeat some of the stuff he says, but he's being straight up racist towards the thing. And it's a combination of obviously returning to Vietnam for the first time since the war, last time they were there, they're in war, so he's obviously heavy PTSD symptoms, which they explore more throughout the movie.
Yep.
Then also they build upon that with the combination of being a black man in America, who's now turned into a Trump supporter, and they kind of explain how he's a Trump supporter because he's kind of brought into the whole. He got fucked over so hard during the war. He never really got anything out of it. He never got what was his. Trump's like offering to finally, put up the wall so he can get a good job and like make better pay for everyone. Like he's brought into all that. So his character is definitely the most interesting because it's not something you obviously see like a black Trump supporter is not usually the go-to Trump supporter character type that you would do. So that makes for interesting dynamic. And the movie does explore lots of different themes that make it, I would say, it's hard to explore all of them in one movie. Like it seems like a lot, and the movie goes for like 2.5 hours, and even then, it's just like there is a lot happening and going on here, and most of it's from like a psychological level, because not only is it exploring like what's it like to be a black man in America now, it's exploring what was it like to be a black man in America being forced to fight in the Vietnam War when it wasn't a war that you wanted to participate in. The movie literally starts with the famous Muhammad Ali speech where he said about like, he's like, these people didn't call me N-word, like why are we, like there's this famous Muhammad Ali speech. So that kind of kicks off the tone for the movie and the rest of it. And it is super interesting. And the other thing they do that I found quite intriguing, given that Netflix did a whole movie where they de-aged a bunch of characters, is so the fifth person that's important for this movie is Chadwick Boseman plays the character whose remains they're trying to go find. But whenever they have flashback sequences to when they're younger and you see Chadwick Boseman's character, all the other four men, three men, sorry, they're being played by their older selves, like the same actors. They don't get younger actors. They don't try and de-age them. And I like that because I thought it was from a psychological standpoint. They're kind of remembering it. And
it's just a message that black doesn't crack.
Hey? I was like, the movie's not cheap. They have a bunch of money in it. So I feel like they could have obviously tried to do these de-aging things if they wanted to. But
they just do some basic stuff like color their hair and that kind of stuff.
But it's not... It's just, it was an interesting choice. And then there's other stuff, like you got Jean Reno's in it, and he plays this Frenchman. And then getting into this exploration of like the French in the country and all this other stuff, I'm like, this is like, there is a lot. And I feel like maybe that's another reason it kind of could potentially hold the film back, because even for a Spike Lee film, I feel like there's a lot in this. It's not like an exploration of one sort of focused topic. It's an exploration of a lot in a combination of a rather stereotypical kind of action movie thriller plot, which is about a bunch of people go to get a bunch of gold, and then what happens? Oh, the money and the power and the like trying to protect that gold and that wealth that no matter what ends up being their sort of detriment. And that's not like a major spoiler because I'm not really going to say it, but that's a storyline we've seen done many times over since early 1900s probably. There is a famous book I saw everyone bringing up on, a famous movie I saw everyone bringing up on Twitter the other day when I saw people talking about this movie. I've never seen the movie though, so as like the first version, and I think it was like from the 1940s where it's literally like a bunch of people trying to get gold, then of course they start dropping. Even that movie that came out on Netflix last year, the Ben Affleck one, where they go into what, I can't remember the name of it.
Triple Frontier or something
Triple Frontier or something like that. Yeah. But that's that is the storyline of this movie. But without all the... From the very basic broad, through line, and then Spike obviously builds these much more interesting storylines on them. But your basic through line for this movie is the same as Triple Frontier, which is a bunch of men go into a country to try and get riches, and then those riches cause them to do silly and things that aren't actually worth going through for the whole thing. But overall, I really enjoyed it. My major criticism is that there are several scenes that were ruined for me because of the music. And I find it quite weird because I've seen people online say, like, I saw someone tweet yesterday that they thought the music in this by, who did, let's see, find it real quick. Terrence Blanchard or Blanchard, I'm not 100% sure. However, his music, someone was like, oh, best should be Oscar nominated, best music year. And I'm like, it may be good music. However, it is so overbearing in several scenes that I couldn't help but stop and start thinking about how overbearing the music was. And it was taking me out of the actual scene during the moment. And it began to really annoy me, like halfway through the movie, how overbearing I was finding this movie. And maybe this is just me, I don't know, but that is my major gripe with the movie.
Well, obviously, I read your review before I watched the film and noted. I think that might be why I was paying more attention to the music. I feel like it was misused at certain points, like the original
ruins some
score.
scenes.
There's weirdly tonally wrong. It sounds like it's meant to be this uplifting music, but it doesn't quite fit some of the scenes that it's in. But a lot of the licensed music they use in the film is more
The licensed
used.
music's great. By
Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye. Yeah, all that stuff is fantastic. It's just the original score when they're using that, it just feels weird.
Yeah, it feels a bit out of place. But yeah, I thought it was really great as well. Obviously, interesting look at that broader idea, very relevant at the time, like eerily relevant. And yeah, Delroy Lindo would have to be talked about as a potential
Oscar.
early
Not that
runner.
there's much coming out at the moment, but I mean,
I mean, it's probably far and away one of the best performances I've seen so far this year, especially towards the... I feel like the movie does take a big shift towards the later half of the film where it goes more in a action-esque direction. Even to the extent of being a bit cartoony, like some of the violence almost seems like it was out of a Tarantino movie.
I mean, I don't know. I know, like, there is the one most obviously horrific scene in it, and I honestly don't know if that's over the top or not, because I haven't looked up real life footage of
No, yes. Yeah.
how that would go down in real life. But it didn't seem too cartoony to me. It was like kind of out of nowhere, I guess, and maybe it seemed a bit silly. I think the stuff towards the very end of the movie does seem like it's out of a scene out of the Uncharted video game or something like
Yes.
that. When you're talking about the one set of characters. However, the stuff all happening with D. Laurie's character is much more interesting, I guess, because he's kind of on a psychedelic fucking trip through his life. And there's one scene in particular, one of his final scenes in the movie, right near the end, I thought was one of the most touching in the movie, because
Yes.
it wasn't ruined by the music, and it was really great.
Yeah, so Five Bloods out on Netflix, definitely worth checking out, because let's be honest, there's nothing else to watch.
Yeah.
Recent. So I also caught up and watched the final season of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. I think it is brilliant. It is, if you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender or Legends of Korra, this is like a spiritual successor to that. It finally brings a combination of the entire story they've been building for these last 5 seasons together perfectly. Sometimes the animation feels like it's not up to the same level as it has been. Like it feels like a couple of times they've taken like some shortcuts. The designs and that look a bit off and that kind of thing. But overall, great season, great ending. A lot of the fans obviously were very happy with certain things that happened. Yeah, it does very much feel like the last season of Avatar: The Last Airbender, with a certain character flipping sides and feeling. For those who know, someone fills that Zuko role, and it works, and it's really good. So yeah, if you got small children or you just really like animated stuff, She-Ra, Prince of Power, you can't get wrong. Let's talk about some news. I guess the story that got the most traction this last couple of weeks is Gone with the Wind was pulled from HBO Max after an open letter from 12 Years a Slave screenwriter John Ridley, in which he wrote about the film. It doesn't just fall short with regards to representation. It's a film that glorifies the antebellum South. It is a film that, when it is not ignoring the horrors of slavery, pauses to only perpetuate some of the most painful stereotypes of people of colour. It is a film as part of the narrative of the Lost Cause, romanticizes Confederacy in a way that continues to be legitimate, to give legitimacy to the notion that secessionist movement was something more or better or more noble than it was, a global insurrection to maintain the right to own, sell, and buy human beings. I guess it's interesting, the idea of, to a certain extent, censoring films from the past to try and mod it with our modern sensibilities, I guess. It feels like a weird road to start going down. Do you feel the same sort of way, or was it... You feel it was a good move?
What when I read this, I don't really have strong feelings on this because of one main factor, which I think, yeah, I haven't seen the film, and I feel like a lot of people online I've seen arguing about it probably haven't seen the film either, and the people probably sticking up for it and like claiming, you know, like world's gone crazy, probably haven't seen the film. So that's why I don't have any particular strong feelings, because like I can't respond to his ladder where he's talking about that stuff because I haven't seen the movie. I don't know what the fuck but as to like is taking something off HBO Max, if it is potentially problematic, is that censorship? I'm going to say no, because it's a streaming service and they're not banning it from being sold in the world. You know, like if they were like, all of a sudden America law states you cannot sell Gone with the Wind on digital or Blu-ray services or whatever, then sure, that's censorship. However, HBO Max or any streaming platform, you know, they have choices about what things they want to include in their library of films. And I guess it's like if the movie is what he's saying it is, and we'll play with that because, as I said, I haven't seen it, but we'll go with that. If it is, and it is kind of like this sort of propaganda for these sorts of things, then I guess it is like, well, why do they have to have it on their streaming service? They don't have to have it on their streaming service. Most people watching HBO Max probably don't give a fuck about the movie until this whole issue was caused about it. So, yeah, I read a story that Gone with the Wind was like the highest selling something on like Amazon Prime or something in the days after, which is great. Which not surprising, but yeah, I bet you these people aren't even watching it. They're just trying to prove a point or something.
Yes,
probably. But again, if it's not HBO Max and you can get it somewhere else, it's not censorship, in my opinion. Like, what are you censoring? It was it's an open ladder, being like, is his movie on there? Like, is that what the, like, do we know that?
I don't know. I imagine. I don't think so. 12 Years a Slave, I don't think was a Warner Brothers film.
I don't remember. But I guess it's like, from his standpoint, that may be a big difference between him wanting to work with Warner Brothers or not wanting to work with Warner Brothers. And I guess that's his call. I mean, it's an open fucking ladder. He's not trying to censor anyone. It's an open... People claim that you're trying to censor something simply because you're... Like, he wrote an open letter. It was like, here's my feelings, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, someone there agreed and was like, yeah, maybe not. We don't want to support this. And they take it off. See, and that... I mean, the Disney stuff, I think Disney kind of do their quote-unquote censorship better, where they're... I don't mind the way they take down... They put the message at the start of some things.
Yeah. I believe that's what they're going to start... They're likely to do. They'll put up some sort of disclaimer before the movie. They're doing similar things with, like, Looney Tunes cartoons.
Yeah. And heaps of those are racist, stereotype as fuck. So if they take it down and they put it back up, and the start of the movie now begins with, hey... blah, 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 this film glorifies this, blah, 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 blah. Just so you know, it doesn't represent us. We don't actually believe in this, but it is a thing that happened. It's part of history, blah, 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 blah. Here you go. Then that's not censorship. Like, I mean, what are they censoring?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, as long as they're putting it back up, I guess it's fine.
I mean, literally the worst thing Disney's done is they've added that fucking hair over Daryl Hannah's ass in that one movie. Like, that's censorship.
That's pretty terrible.
That's more censorship than putting a message at the start of the movie that's like, hey, just so you know, this shit's racist probably. Like,
this is wrong. I mean...
That's education, right?
Yeah, it's educational, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's an odd one that they picked this film out of all the potentially terrible films that are probably on that service.
I guess it's because he called it out, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's not like they randomly did it. You're telling me the narrative is he called it out. They took it down. It's not like they randomly did it. That's the narrative.
So I guess on a similar sort of train, we've seen a lot of projects with some sort of blackface, to put it broadly, being removed off different streaming services. I'm assuming you feel this is a good move. And the question is, why is it taking this long?
Yeah, and heaps of these shows I used to watch, and some of them I still do. I would say that I still like, and I would say that I would hope that some of these shows with people I don't believe they're actually racist. I think they were just ignorant at the time, and I would hope they're not ignorant at now, and they would understand why it's wrong. Of course, I think lots of these shows are comedies, and most of the people doing them were probably like, oh, it's fine, like I'm not being racist because I'm playing a character, blah 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 blah, which isn't actually okay because it still offends and upsets people because of the negative connotations that has throughout Black history and like what blackface was used for in the past. So it doesn't just automatically make it okay to do in comedy. Like I know they've taken down like Little Britain.
Yes.
Used to love Little Britain. They've taken down one of my favorite all-time comedy shows of all time, The Mighty Boosh. They've taken that down off some streaming services. Now, you're going to tell me that I believe everyone involved in these shows are racist? I don't believe that. I'm just going to choose to believe they're ignorant, and that's fine.
Yep.
Like they take them down, maybe they'll put them back up eventually, maybe they'll add messages, maybe they'll remove the episodes with the blackface and put the rest up and be like, we just don't want to show these ones. At which point, whatever. I honestly don't care. There's like, at some stage, the argument between like keeping around shit for the sake of keeping it around solely to please people who probably didn't care about it until it was taken down, because this is the exact same thing as Gone with the Wind. People don't care about this stuff until it's taken down, and then it's like, what about my guns? What about my guns? My freedoms? It's the exact same fucking narrative. It's like, do you care about, were millions of people watching Little Britain before it was taken down? Probably not. Now they're gonna take it down, put back the episodes. Who cares? Don't care. Like, just if we're gonna move the world, if we're gonna move the world to a place where everyone could be happier together, then at some point someone's going to take the L, and if white people have to take the L of losing some fucking comedy skits and episodes that are offending a entirety of all the black people across the entire fucking world, then okay, take the L.
Okay, well, I guess a slight tangent. Obviously, there was that episode of Faulty Towers that was removed for featuring racial slurs and that kind of thing that drew a bit of criticism on both sides. How do you feel about that? And to what extent does this... They're going to put some sort of disclaimer in front of that saying that the language used in this is not appropriate this day and age. But then to what extent do we need to start putting disclaimers on pretty much everything? Are they going to start putting disclaimers in front of Django Unchained because Leonardo DiCaprio is a terrible person in that film?
No, I mean, he's playing a terrible person, so I think it like fits the I didn't actually read this one. What is, can you like, what's the deal?
So the one episode of Faulty Towers called The Germans was pulled off the air, not because it involves the Germans. I believe one of the characters made kind of racist remarks about players from the West Indies cricket team.
Okay, right.
Yes.
I can summarize, I guess. So, they took it down. They're going to put in a message saying that it's racist.
And potentially edit out those scenes.
On what? Like BBC iView?
On BBC iView, yeah.
I think, unless it's super racist, I don't know the full context, but I feel for most things, unless it's super like straight up really, really racist, I feel like if it depends on the context, I would say that I would prefer them just to put the message and leave the full episode.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen this, so I don't know the full context. So I would say it depends on what it is. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's kind of case by case.
Do we need someone to go back and watch everything and start deciding what needs to be sent?
No.
Disclaimed? Or is it just like when somebody brings something up,
case by case. People bring stuff up. These are famous comedy shows. Someone's calling them out. Faulty Towers is probably still rewatched heaps in Britain, I suppose. UK, so yeah. I mean, I don't know. Do we got again? Like, maybe if we hadn't been racist in the first place, this wouldn't be a problem. Like, that's the thing. People are like, oh, now we got to deal with this problem of trying to fucking not be racist. Well, if you hadn't been racist in the first place, we wouldn't have this fucking problem now. Like, what? do you know what I mean? Like,
pull that quote out. That's great.
It's silly.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I suspect we'll keep seeing this kind of stories going forward from now on, I guess. If this is the precedent we're going to set. So Look forward to people complaining about slightly being inconvenienced, because that's what white people like to complain about.
Too, because when I was reading about the Mighty Boosh thing, for example, and that was Paul, I was like, oh, what? When did they do blackface in that? Because I haven't watched it for like probably 5-6 years. No, probably 6-8 years. Probably I forgot what year it was. I haven't watched that show through. And then when I clicked on the article, they're like, oh, this character. I'm like, fuck, they are blackface. But when I was watching it, when I was like 16, here I am, completely fucking ignorant to the whole concept, that there was never an iota of my brain that was like, that's blackface, that's probably not okay. However, now when I look back and I'm like, as I said, I'm following this up by saying Mighty Boosh is, I'd be like, that's one of my favorite British comedies. And now I see this article and they're like, oh, that's blackface. Because I'm not a crybaby, I go, yeah, that's probably not on. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. And it doesn't take me a second to go, yeah, okay, understandable. Even though I had no problem with it back in the day. Also, there are so many fucking new things coming out these days. Everyone's sitting on Netflix asking for a new TV show every fucking week that everyone devours in 24 hours and then bitches there's nothing more to watch. You can lose a couple old episodes of TV shows and it's not gonna... like, what are you, just sitting at home only watching racist things that had like blackface from fucking 50 years ago? Get over yourselves.
Yeah, it's pretty... I don't think people would miss it a lot anyway.
These same people probably write on their Twitter like, we should all just learn to get along and do things to make each other happier. Or some bullshit like that, like variations of these quotes. But then the second it inconveniences them, it's like, oh, nah.
No, yeah.
Probably not, eh? Like, just do what makes me happy.
The interesting one I've seen is people bring up the movie White Chicks and like, why isn't this getting...
Because there's no part in people don't understand what blackface is. People who don't understand blackface assume that the problem is simply that they're wearing black makeup and that they're dressing up. These white people are dressing up as black people. However, they have no idea of the main reason blackface is not on is because of the way blackface was used throughout history to do super racist things, including I can't remember.
Jim Crow, obviously.
Yeah, yes, all that sort of stuff. That is why blackface is fucked up. You know why whiteface isn't fucked up? Tell me in history at all where anyone put white makeup on and fucking used it to mock and ridicule and absolutely depower the white people. It didn't happen. It's not part of history. It never happened. That's why it's not a problem. It's one fucking movie that everyone brings up all the time. White chicks, white chicks, white chicks. Fuck off.
And they're not playing white people. They're playing... The actors are playing black people pretending to be white people.
Yeah, and people always like to go what if this was the opposite? Would that be offensive? And the answer is yes. Again, it would be, because again, there's not at all the fucking same. It's completely different stories.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's about context. There's context to everything.
Obviously,
and the context is not there.
The one that we've kind of, I guess, accepted is Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder, I guess, because he's playing...
I think that one's still debated, if that's okay.
It's still
I think
that's on the line, I think.
Yeah, I think some people are like, it's okay because it was sort of the way they'd done it was like sort of
the context
ridiculing the whole idea of doing blackface or whatever else.
Yeah.
I think again, and a lot of people say that's not on, and honestly, it's like, if you think if someone says to me that's not on, if a black person says, hey, that's not on for me, I don't like it, and then someone else is like, it's not, I don't mind it, then that's that's it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, we don't need a guiding council to decide which is on, which is not. I'm sure it offends some people, it doesn't offend other people, whatever.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to, I guess, happier content. I read this story about Tenet. Obviously, we get moved from about 2 weeks to the end of July. Apparently, Warner Brothers was keener on delaying it even more. But Christopher Nolan pushed for it to be released in July because he wants Tenet to be one of the films that helps save the post-pandemic theatrical experience. I mean, we talked about before how much Christopher Nolan is going to get paid. I think it's crazy how much power he seems to have over Warner Brothers at this point.
I I have mixed feelings on this story, I suppose, because it's a story that came out, and then the framing of it is basically to imply that Christopher Nolan that he's completely naive and doesn't understand the world, and he's quite wanting to push people into cinemas to basically fucking kill them to watch his movie, which may be true. Maybe he's completely
that doesn't make sense. He needs more people in cinemas, so
they only need to pay once, and then they can die, and that's fine.
No, but for his next film, if there's a smaller population in the world because everybody's dead, then not going to make as much money.
That's true, I suppose. But yeah, like the framing is basically like he's saying it doesn't matter, just push it out. And if that is true, that's obviously super fucked up. But I don't really know, because I find it weird to believe that he would be the one pushing to make money, and these big suit executives at the top of Warner Bros. Wouldn't also be quite happy to play ball with.
No, I think the Warner Brothers are the one wanting to postpone the film because they'll make more money when everything is fine and everybody can. There's more people going to the cinemas, but Christopher Nolan wants the movie out earlier so that people will go to the cinemas and start supporting cinemas and want to start rebuilding that need for people to go to the theater and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of in a weird position now. From couple, like even a month ago, obviously completely different world. We're now at the stage where it's like I'd say 3/4, I don't know, at least half of Australia's different states seem to be doing fine. My state's fine now, apparently. Obviously New Zealand's fine. Melbourne still seems a bit fucked up.
Yep.
Wherever you are, different stories happening. But overall, Australia's still pretty good. Like I would say, you've got what, a handful of cases in Melbourne and whatever, but the numbers are pretty minimal for our entire country. Whereas America's still getting thousands of new cases per day.
Every day, yeah. Every
single day. So looking at where we are, the idea of going to the cinema for me now is like, okay, I'll go to cinema because like my local cinema opened up today. I'm probably not going to go because recorded this, and I think the showing times are weird because they
need to space them out.
Yeah, I think they're spacing out. Probably they're just doing a bit less the first day to like get into the cleaning habits or whatever else. But they're doing the whole blocked off every 2 rows or whatever it is in front. So they basically got half a cinema after they block off the chairs and whatnot, and they said they're going to do extra cleaning duties and whatever else. So the idea of Tenet opening here on the 30th and me going to watch it, that excites me, and I'm all about it because I'm pretty much like, I have no cases, cinemas are opening again. Pretty much all of Australia probably feels similar, if not the same. I know other places in Australia, obviously cinemas have already opened. Yours is opening this week as well, right? Is it?
Yeah, so one of them's opening tomorrow, well, a day of recording. Another one will be opening next week. One of the indie ones, but a lot of the bigger chain ones that haven't opened or made any announcements yet. So
yeah, my indie one actually opened last week. I forgot last Friday. So and then my village is what was opening today. So yeah, I mean the lights are all coming back on here, and then there's other places, as I said, like New Zealand, and I'm sure maybe there's some other countries I'm unaware of who have done a good job. I think Japan is also slightly turning the lights back on. Somewhat, I think, or something like that. But it's just like America's still fucked. So if I was in
such a big market, it's like
and that's the problem. And it really is like America is obviously the main market for cinema and the one that matters, and they're really just going to keep the rest of the world. Which sounds weird to talk when you're about to, obviously the movies aren't more important, but it is like. It's kind of, we're in this weird situation where they're like, we want to open up cinemas. And it's like, well, you can, just don't do it in America. Like,
yeah,
BL. Like, honestly, I know this is obviously kind of talking out my ass and it won't happen because it's just not something they'll do. But really, if they were like, fuck it, we need to start like trying to churn the wheels a little bit. Put Tenet out in cinemas here, put whatever movies, New Zealand, wherever else is good to go sort of thing. And then just do them that expensive VOD shit in America. Just fucking... Oof. I mean,
I don't think Nolan would be on board with that.
No, he probably wouldn't be, but you know what I mean? Like, instead of doing this whole, like, let's just open up the cinemas in America and Australia, New Zealand, let's just open up the cinemas everywhere and get the ball rolling. they could have done this. Everyone could be working together to do a way that makes more sense, that could get money rolling into cinemas in countries like Australia, and then also money rolling back into the production houses and so on and so forth, even with the VOD system, while also keeping people safer in countries like America, where it's just utterly not a good idea to go to a cinema. If I was in America, I would not be going to a cinema. If I was in America, I probably wouldn't be going outside at the moment. Like, you hear about
You'd be building your
numbers.
own bunker. That's what you'd be doing.
Pretty much. Well, you hear about the cases and numbers they got, and I'm like,
I mean, at this point, America is going for herd mentality. So I don't think anybody is going in and out of America in a very long time.
Yeah, so absolute nightmare. But will they delay it again? Maybe. That's, I guess, who knows at this stage. They delayed Wonder Woman till fucking September,
August.
something. Was
October,
it?
I think.
Oh, October. Yeah, that makes sense. It was somewhere way later, so they moved that one way out of the way and whatever else. But yeah, it's just like from a purely selfish manner, I'm like, I want to go see Tenet in a couple of weeks. Sounds great. But no, it's not a good idea for you in America and other countries to go see Tenet at all. That sounds like an absolutely horrible idea. Even if you do space out the chairs and do all that sort of shit. No. Fuck no.
No. Not in a country where people
are coughing in people's faces
masks.
and hate the idea of face masks and whatever else. Yeah. It's like there's way too many cases. I have 0 active cases in my state. So I'm feeling less threatened to go outside at the moment. You know, obviously I'm still hand sanitizing. I'm glad the cinema's going to be cleaning and spacing out. That's all just like a safety measure. But like knowing that I have 0 active cases paired with the fact they're cleaning, I'm like, I feel pretty good to go to cinema at the moment.
On the back of borders being closed for the last...
Yeah, my borders are still closed, so it's like, okay.
Yep, so cinemas. Hopefully by next episode, we might be able to talk about stuff that we've seen in cinemas. Crazy Nation.
No new movies, probably.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Mulan's the next probably big release. That's mid-July.
They'll delay that as well.
Yeah, I mean, if they move that would be interesting. Yeah. Oscars have finally been moved. They were scheduled for February next year, and they've pushed it a bit further back, being to April next year. This means that any movie released up till February 1st, I believe, will be eligible. Which is interesting because it could potentially mean films that go to Sundance next year, if it's held, would be in a kind of weird position.
It's gonna also mean that the following year's Oscars would be a shorter period. Season.
Yeah. I think a good move. Who knows at this point? It's so far out, and America is in such a terrible place. It's like, how's it even going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, you'd like to believe that everything will be better by then, surely. But also it's like, surely? Question mark? I don't know.
Well, yeah, even I think I saw a story of Jimmy Kimmel, who's set to host the Emmys this year. And he's like, we don't know how we're going to do the Emmys this year. Is it going to be the stay-at-home edition of the Emmy Awards? Or like a 1-hour ceremony where Jimmy Kimmel comes out, does a monologue in his room, in his house, and then they just announce who won all the awards.
Gotta do what you gotta do. It's weird times. But yeah. I mean, it'll be an interesting Oscars. I feel like any big event like that, when it kind of comes out of this period, will just feel like a big one anyway. You know, like not only will you have more movies there potentially to talk about, but just overall, I feel like the show will feel like a. If the world is better by then, it'll not only be a celebration of movies, but it'll feel like a celebration of the industry coming out of the dark times somewhat. You know what I mean? So, it should be a good show if it actually happens. When it happened.
In convention news, Star Wars Celebration for 2020 has been cancelled, with more surprisingly, no plans for like any online event or anything.
Yeah.
And it's not going to come back till 2022. Just do you feel like? I feel like this is smart because really they don't have much Star Wars. They obviously don't have the main franchise movies, which I feel like were a major pulling point to more casual Star Wars fans to the event.
And really, they've only got The Mandalorian running at the moment.
I feel like, so from a sitting at home watching the convention, a lot of people's focus on news cycles always, of course, the big movies or whatever. A lot of people that attend that convention on the yearly don't care about that because the convention was started, I think it was started the year of the Phantom Menace or like the year after or that sort of thing. So they had a couple of years there where there were sort of announcements or whatever. But then there was there was dark years where it was just a fan convention of people signing, sharing collectibles, getting together. It was an excuse for people to come together at one convention to meet up once a year and have a good time and go out and eat and celebrate Star Wars together. So for a lot of people, that's what it is for them. It's a yearly celebration sort of thing that they're gonna miss out on, and a lot of people are going to be disappointed about that. But yeah, for the news cycle stuff, I guess people are getting annoyed that they'll potentially miss out on news this year. I don't know how much news they would have had to release anyway. Like they probably would have had Mandalorian season 2 trailer. May or may not have just been behind closed doors anyway. They probably would have revealed the director and synopsis or title for one of these spin-off movies that we don't know about, or maybe even 2 of them sort of thing. Maybe if Rian Johnson's thing's still happening, maybe they would have gave more information on that. But they haven't been shooting anything, so it's like, what are they going to do there? The only other big thing that I was kind of looking forward to that's been rumored for quite some time is the Rebels sequel / adjacent series that apparently is being rumored for like a couple of years at this point that they began working on, and it was rumored that they're going to announce it this year. And of course they still can announce these things, they're just not going to announce them at a convention where you can watch the cool videos of people screaming, and that's always more exciting, I guess. Like, yes. I like watching the trailer properly and then also watching those sorts of videos because they're just exciting to see people going crazy when certain things get revealed and whatever else. But it is obviously disappointing. I was hoping they would actually just announce a presentation, digital event, get Warwick Davis to host it, like Anthony Daniels there, do some sort of online thing where they could still talk and have some guests over fucking Google Hangouts or whatever. But I mean, they could still announce that. It's just wouldn't be Star Wars Celebration. They could just be like, hey, to make up for it, like we're getting some people together and we're just going to, chat about Star Wars and maybe we'll reveal some things, blah, 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 blah.
Or they could combine it with the next thing I want to talk about, Comic-Con. They've confirmed that they will be holding an online Comic-Con this year. In the press release, they said plans for Comic-Con at home, include an online exhibit hall complete with everyone's favorite exhibitors offering promotion specials and limited edition products unique to the celebration, as well as promising exclusive panels and presentations about comics, gaming, television, film, and a wide variety of topics from publishers, studios, and more. As if that weren't enough, Comic-Con at home will also have a masquerade, gaming, and many other activities in which fans can participate from their own homes. As someone who will never likely go to Comic-Con, this sounds like the closest thing most of us will ever get to it.
Yeah, I mean, but it sounds good. But also, my first thought for all of this is, in a post-COVID world, do we just get more online conventions? Because people are like, why can't you just do this sort of thing regularly anyway?
I mean, I don't think it'll kill the convention experience.
No, of course not kill it, but do it as well. Or as its own event. Like Comic-Con Online is its own event now, you know what I mean?
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody wanted to put one together, or Comic-Con decides this is going to be like the third pillar in their own franchise with San Diego and New York. Well, of course, it depends on how they pull it off. Of course, it's free, which is a good incentive to get involved. Obviously, we've seen within gaming, there's been a couple of digital conventions and that kind of thing that have done reasonably well. So I don't think it's an unlikely thing for it to continue.
Yeah. Do you have the news story about the Warner Brothers thing here?
I did, but I believe they're just doing a DC-centric event called DC Fandome.
Yeah.
in which they'll be talking about all their TV shows and all their upcoming movies, as well as all their
video game stuff as
video
well.
game stuff.
But I found it interesting only because you just said video games and it reminded me. I'm like that Warner Brothers event, even though it's got games, TV, movies, it reminded me the most of that event. Sounds more like what we're used to in gaming, where like digital event wise, and now it's a production house doing something similar is what it sounds like. You know, because we've never seen, we're used to, you know, we get Nintendo Directs, State of Plays, Inside Xbox, all these sorts of events, digital events that have been happening well before COVID times. And now this Warner Brothers one sounds the most like one of those. I don't think I've ever seen a movie or TV event that's like that. So that was intriguing me a bit to see how that goes.
All right. Last bit of news, sad bit of news. Paul King, the director of the Paddington 1 and 2, has confirmed that he will not come back for Paddington 3. He said, at some point you just have to stop. It might be time for somebody else to do a twist on it. I'm trying not to do a third Bear movie, which is a huge mistake. Sad, because obviously those first two Paddington movies are like some of the best films we've got the last 10 years or so. Some of the best heartfelt family fun films. Obviously Paul King is working on a bunch of different things. I believe he's doing something else with his Paddington 2 co-writer, and also working on something with Willy Wonka. But I don't know. How do you feel about Paul King not coming back for a third Paddington?
As he said at the end of his statement, it's a big mistake.
Yeah. Him not coming back?
yeah, that's it. That's what he meant, right? It's a huge mistake, and he's coming back. Yeah, I mean, I get what he's saying. I guess, like, you know, like from a creative standpoint, you never want to, especially when you've got two well-beloved movies and then you do the third one and you shit the bed and it's like, oh, fuck. Maybe, because then people are like, oh, maybe he shouldn't have done it. Because everyone's like, you should do it until the moment that you fuck it up, and then it's like, maybe he shouldn't have done it is what the narrative becomes, and maybe he's just afraid of that. However, at the same time, I feel like his directing and his overall creative flair is so important to what made those movies work that I just don't know how anyone else could do it and make it work. Like, I really cannot picture those movies without him directing. But before I saw those movies, like I watched his first movie back in the day, the Bully in the Bill, Bunky in the Bill, something, I can't remember the fucking name of it. I watched it back in the day because he used to be involved with Mighty Boosh stuff, and then that movie also had the two dudes from Mighty Boosh in it as well. And that movie has very much like that set up his sort of style and whatever, and that's what he brought to Paddington. And these are most evident in the scenes, like even in the second movie where, the first movie where he's showing his grandmother around or whatever it is. You know, like the way that's all shot, stylized and whatever else. It's just there's a certain thing about the way he makes these movies. It's like, it's not Wes Anderson type, but it is like in whatever type of weird sort of filmmaking you want to call that. Like, it's not full Wes Anderson, but it's definitely on that sort of line.
Wes Anderson light.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, like
not too quirky.
Not too quirky, but he's definitely on the quirky side, obviously. And I feel like
spectrum, yeah.
And it works quite well for these movies. So yeah, I was disappointed with this. And it just I wouldn't go in until I find out who's doing the third one. Just kind of expecting it to be poo now, really.
Yeah, it's a bit disappointing. Do you feel like Hollywood is too obsessed with trilogies?
I mean, Hollywood
should they just be content with two films?
I feel like
two great films.
But it's not really trilogies. It's just they're happy to make as many movies as it's profitable. That's what Hollywood's obsessed with, money. It's not trilogies. But at the same time, it's like, when was the last one? 2 years ago? 3 years ago? 2-3 years ago?
2-3 years ago.
I'm at the point where I'm like, yeah, Enough Paddington sounds great, especially after this year. So, you know,
not even Paddington could pull us out of this year at the moment, I don't think, but it'd be worth a try.
Yeah, well.
All right. Let's move into what do we end up watching. Hey, Dylan, what do we end up watching?
Tucker and Dale vs. Evil.
Who wants to go skinny dipping?
No.
We got your friend!
They captured Allison.
Oh,
some pancakes. You hate pancakes? I'm gonna make you something else.
What am I doing here?
You fell into the water. Dove in and rescued you. We'll go find your friends. You should relax. Tucker and Dale are on the case.
What is this place?
It's just a cabin. It doesn't mean they're psycho killers.
Then why don't you go in there and talk to them?
All right. Maybe I will. I said maybe.
Yes, the 2010 film directed by Eli Craig, starring Tyler Bean, Alan Tudyk, Katrina Bowden, Jesse Moss, and Chellan Simmons. Tucker and Dale decide to go on a vacation to their cabin in the mountains. Their vacation takes a nasty turn when they are mistaken for chainsaw killers by a group of college students. Dylan, you had the pick this week. Why did you pick Tucker and Dale versus Evil?
Because I was looking for something a bit of fun, and I looked on my Trakt list of movies, of the watch list, whatever they call it on there, where you mark stuff you want to watch, and this was on there, and so that's why I watched it.
Cool. So what do you think?
It was really good. It was funny. I like the overall the gore level for the comedy stuff. I enjoy comedies. I enjoy horror movies. I enjoy when they do a good combination of both. I thought both Alan Tudyk and Tyler Labine were fantastic, and their chemistry with one another was great in these roles. And overall, I just thought it's like barely 90 minutes. Fucking laugh out loud. Great time. Enjoyed it. Good pick, Dylan. That's what I say.
Yeah, obviously, this has kind of been on my list as well for a long time. Obviously, it gotten reasonably good reviews, I feel like, but it didn't
It's
perform
a cult
very well.
classic somewhat.
It's kind of like a cult film. It didn't do very well at the box office. So on a budget of $5 million, it made $5.1 million. No, $5.7 million. So obviously not a big financial success. But, it's a lot of fun, entertaining film. I don't think there's much depth to it. Obviously, it's just a film about misunderstandings and
it's about not
terrible
judging a book
coincidence.
by its cover is what it is.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if you want to go to a certain degree, it's kind of like kind of fitting in this time of era where you're just assuming because somebody looks a certain way that they're a certain type of person.
I mean, if the main characters
a certain amount of a certain degree of threat.
If the main characters were black people, then instead of the two white dudes, then this movie definitely would have.
It would have played different. The police would have been more.
Yeah.
The police officer in the film wouldn't have been so lenient on a lot of things.
Possibly not. No. But yeah, it's although the one thing I think that helped this stand out from other horror comedies is it doesn't fall into just doing takes on too many horror tropes, and it doesn't really hide what's going on. And then also I appreciated what's her name? Is it this chick here? Oh yeah, Allison, right? Who's played by Katrina Bowden. I enjoyed that her character wasn't just the dumb blonde. Because I feel like in a different version of this movie, she would have just been the stereotypical horror movie dumb blonde. And I'm not saying there's like too many of the characters in this, depth-wise.
Anybody outside of that the main three.
Couple three, yeah. 3, 4, whatever.
Maybe Chad.
Yeah, I guess he has a little bit more to him. But I appreciated, like, it's just little things like that where I'm like, okay, they didn't go the full horror trope and make her the dumb bimbo. And they actually gave her personality and she's actually quite smart and whatever else. Yep. So I enjoyed that. It wasn't like, oh, this is a rip on horror movies. It was just kind of doing its own common horror thing, and it wasn't a parody is I suppose what I mean. Like, it wasn't parodying stuff, it just was a horror comedy. And I feel like that there is a difference, because there are horror comedies that are clearly parodying horror tropes, horror movies, and they're doing them, and some of those work. Shaun of the Dead is one of the biggest examples, and even if you don't know all the things it's parodying, it is parodying the fuck out of a bunch of classic zombie films. And the reason that movie works is because if you haven't seen the classic zombie films, you still laugh. If you have seen the classic zombie films, you still laugh, and that's why that movie works. However, there are ones where, like Shaun of the Dead, that don't pull it off so well, and then there are just other straight horror comedies, like obviously the Father Evil Deads, where they turned it less from a horror and more into a horror comedy, but they were never parodying. They were just Raimi doing his own sort of thing, and this falls into that camp. Yeah.
So enjoyable film. It does like take a weird twist at the end. I feel like tonally it just kind of shifts and is not as fun as maybe the start of the film. But that's fine. that you kind of expect. It just has to wrap up the story, and you can't. I feel like a lot of the fun comes from the
accidents.
misunderstanding and that kind of stuff. Whereas towards the end, it's a bit more confrontational.
10 years old, we can spoil like one. I won't spoil it because people want to watch it after this. But there's like early scene where they miss. So basically, early in the movie, that Tucker and Dale are out in this boat, and then the girls, one of the girls is like skinny dipping, and the other one's like taking her clothes off. That too. This what the fuck? I forgot her name. Allison, the character, is right, but then she spots them, and she screams. She falls in the water. She gets knocked out. They save her, and all the friends run off because they think they're kidnapping her. So that's where the first misunderstanding starts. So they take her back to her hut, and they're not doing anything wrong. They just put her down. He brings her eggs and bacon in the morning, and then she's like, "Oh, you aren't actually evil. You actually just saved me. That's cool." But however, then all the other college kids come, and they think they've kidnapped, and then there's that first scene where like a couple of them charge at them to try and save their friend, and like one of them just like straight trips over and like implants himself on a fucking spear. Basically, the other one goes to dive at one of them and ends up just diving headfirst into a fucking wood chipper. Like that's great. Yeah.
Great. I love Alan Tudyk's explanation for it all. That it's some sort of weird
he's like
suicide
it's some cult where they're all killing themselves around the forest. He's like, what about her? Well, they must be trying to kill her as well. That's why they're coming here. It's like, what about us? Because we don't know. That's why.
I mean, makes sense.
Yeah, it all adds up. It does add up.
It does all add up. So that was Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Check it out. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode of What Do You Want to Watch? If you want to let us know what you thought of this show, you can find us at our Twitters, which you can find at explosionnetwork.com/Twitter, or just at ExplosionPod over there. You can leave us a review on the Twitter feed, or either on Apple Podcasts or on Podchaser, or just tell your friends about the show. I don't know. It's been an interesting recording session. Thank you very much for listening, and until next time, keep watching stuff, I guess.